Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I'll call this meeting to order, and I'll begin by going around and identifying everybody. I am Harry Poor from the County Executive Office.
Alan Sorensen, Commissioner of Planning and NPO Director.
Jacob Tawil, Commissioner of Public Works, City of Middletown.
Mike Sweden, Town of Warwick Supervisor.
Charlie Carnes, Town of Crawford Supervisor.
Jason Morris, Commissioner of Public Works, City of Newburgh.
That's Sandra Jobson with the New York State Department of Transportation.
Lauren Bennett, staff to the OCTC.
Zach Holden, Senior Planner for Orange County Planning.
Elizabeth Conley, the planning intern.
Rob Harrington, Transit Planner for Planning Department.
Obed Ruggies, Planner.
Travis Ewald, Deputy Commissioner of Orange County Public Works.
Great, and who do we have on the line?
So on the line, we have Al Fusco from Fusco Engineering, Nicole Farmer, NISDOT Region 8, Jeff Pangburn, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Creighton Manning, Jessica Ridgway, OC Planner and staff to OCTC, Kate Amati. Kate, who are you with? You can just leave it in the chat, please. Lauren Carter, who are you with?
Good morning with Creighton Manning.
Great, man, thank you. And we have Harriet Lewis, New York State DOT main office. And then we have two numbers calling in, which I believe is Al Fusco's phone and Moishe Gruber for the Village of Curious Jewel.
Okay, so we don't have the Thruway Authority or the MTA?
No, I know Lizzie retired,
Yes.
and I do not see Olu on the call right now.
All right. And do we have a quorum?
Good morning, Harry.
Good morning.
Gary Spears, Town of Park.
Gary. Sorry,
Okay.
Gary.
Is there anybody else that we missed? Okay, we'll now move to opportunity for public comment. Does anyone have anything to say, either those here or those virtually? Now is the time to speak.
I sent a letter down, my staff, Dan McCann, sent a letter down regarding a TIP project we have with a cost increase from the state of $250,000. I just want to make sure that council received that.
No,
No,
we haven't received anything. When was it sent?
week before last. Okay, we got a notice from the state because of the increases in prices there on the TIP safe route project on Main Street there has increased to $250,000. So we definitely sent you a letter. When I get back up there, I'll have them resend it.
Resend it, yeah. Make sure Commissioner is involved as well.
Yep.
As well.
Yeah.
I know it went to the commissioner and so I don't know what happened, but I'll find
I
out.
haven't seen it.
Yeah,
Haven't
no,
seen
we
it.
haven't done anything.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comment besides Mr. Carnes? Yeah, then we'll move on to the Transportation Improvement Program number 4, the draft tip amendment OC 2013.
Accept transit, the meeting.
Oh, okay, excuse me. There's a motion to accept the transfer. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Transportation Improvement Program, Lauren.
Being recorded.
Okay, so we have the draft tip amendment 20-13. Two of the projects were previously presented to OCTC at the April and May planning committee meetings. We have since added 8 more projects. So we'll go through project to project. And at the end, so we'll send this out for 14 days of public comment, and then we're looking to adopt it at the July 5th policy board meeting. So the first action, the first 4 are all NISDOT projects. So the first action is, next slide, Jess. The Route 9W Storm King Mountain Drainage and Median Barrier Improvement. This pin is being added onto the tip in fiscal year 2022 under detailed design. It's state funded, and it's about $250,000 for the detailed design. The next project is the resurfacing of Interstate 84 from State Route 208 to the town of Montgomery to State Route 32 interchange in the town and city of Newburgh. So this project is being added onto the tip in fiscal year 2023, construction and construction inspection for just for about 7.8 for construction and just under $1 million for construction inspection, for total project at about 8.8 million. And this is being offset from a pin on the Mid Hudson South TCC tip, so it does not impact our local project funds. The next project is being added onto the tip. It is a new pin for Route 17 at exit 122, and this is stage 2 of the reconstruction. I think it was reconstructed like 2010, 2012, was stage 1, somewhere around there. So this is stage 2 of the reconstruction of the interchange. It will be adding on the preliminary and detailed design in fiscal year 22 and construction inspection in fiscal year 2023. So the total cost of the project will be around 85 million. And finally, we're adding on another NISDOT pin for preliminary engineering and environmental analysis to upgrade Route 17 to Interstate 86. It is 20 million for a study, and that will be in fiscal year 2022. Sandra, would you like to add any comments to any of these 4 things?
No, does anyone have any questions? Maybe it's easier to take questions.
Any
So
questions?
stage 2 at 122 is,
Crystal Run Road.
what's it entail? Is it gonna get rid of that funky 84 bird?
I'm not sure, because I'm not that intimately knowledgeable about the plans and what we were able to construct under phase 1 and 2. But I could probably get a concept plan.
Nice to see what it
Yeah,
is.
Like
exactly.
based on, sorry, Sandra,
Yeah.
because I remember that project, based on what was done in 2010, 11, it would do exactly what you're talking about. Because if you go to the intersection now, the stoplight's there for the parking right lot, and there's already a curb cut across the street, that's going to be an on-ramp eventually, they're going to complete that.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll get a concept plan that shows, maybe we can color code it to show what the new, would be
That'd be great.
finished in stage 2. Yeah, and that's a very aggressive schedule, but we're really hopeful that we can get the consultant on board quickly, and then we just have to refresh the plans. The plans are actually in metric. So we have to, just an interesting little tidbit, because when stage 1 was done, we were doing everything in metric, now we're back to English. So we'll have those converted by the consultant, and we probably have to refresh the environmental, but we did all the environmental, we built all the mitigation under stage 1, so we should be able to do this.
Okay.
All right, so moving on, so the next are 3 City of Newburgh projects. The first, we already presented at the May meeting. This is pin 876157 Lake Street, Route 32 over Quasay Creek. The City of Newburgh received 1.8 million in congressional earmarks. So we're adding that on to the tip. That does not count against our local targets. The next 2 projects, City of Newburgh 876139 and 876140 are the 2 bridge projects that the City of Newburgh requested funding, the off-system funds on at the last May Planning Committee meeting. So this shows the block for the off-system. It's being offset from the block of the off-system bridge in the fiscal year 2022. So for this first pin, the Lake Drive, they requested an additional 700,000 for construction and construction inspection. And then the Walsh Bridge replacement, they requested an additional 300,000 for construction and construction inspection. So this will use up the entire fiscal year 2022 blocks, and it will impact the rollover for off-system bridge in the coming year, but it will not impact fiscal year 23's funding. So where last May meeting, we showed like 300,000 in the fiscal year 23 block, we just got confirmation that it's going to be this full 822,000 in fiscal year 23. And we'll show that when we go over the tip development, we have all those numbers there. Are there any questions on City of Newburgh's funding requests and projects? Okay, moving on. So the next pin is the block 2, which is the off-system bridge funding. And it just shows the drawdown in the fiscal year 2022, and that's to offset those two, the Walsh Bridge and Lake Drive Bridge funding requests. Any questions on that?
Press on.
Okay, and so we have 2 more projects. So the next one is Orange County, an Orange County project for pin 876267. We've already introduced this to the committee. This is the Bridge New York project. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Is that a county bridge?
Yes,
But this will not have anything to do with our funding. right?
yes, this does not impact the local targets. It has its own, the Bridge New York funding. It's actually, I think it's on the federal aid, so it's not even eligible for the off-system bridge funding.
Okay.
And then finally, the last project is an MTA project. MTA requested a funding swap. They asked the STP Flex funding in pin 882399, which is on our tip, the Newburgh Beacon Ferry Service operations, be moved to a project on the Mid-Hudson South TCC tip, which is for a cyclical track program. And they are backfilling all the funds with MTA funds. So we've been notified that it will not impact the Beacon Ferry Newburgh operations. It's just funding
No
swaps.
service interruptions at all.
There shouldn't be. So any questions on that? Okay, so that is the full of the OCTC TIP Amendment 20-13. Again, it will go out for 14 days of public comment, and we'll seek action at the next policy board meeting.
So, if I may, what happened to Middletown projects, the ones with,
So we're talking about that in the update. So the tip, this is the current tip, 2020 to 2024 tip.
okay,
So when we're talking about the tip development, we do that in the old business, and we'll talk about that next.
Right, it's on the agenda.
Yeah, so these are new funding requests, is that you're referring to the city of Middletown?
Yeah.
So we received new funding requests from the city of Middletown since the last meeting, and that's what you see on the slide. So the city of Middletown has, oh, wait, go back one slide.
Yes, you skipped.
we didn't
City of
request
Newburgh.
additional.
City of Newburgh, yeah.
17, panel 17. Are we on?
Yes. Okay, so.
Jacob just threw you off. He just threw you off, that's all. We'll get to you, Jake. Go ahead.
City of Newburgh funding request for pin 800, 526. They're requesting an additional 1.141 million for construction, and pin 875, they're requesting just over 200,000 for construction. So the proposed, or I guess I'll pause, and Jason, do you have anything to add about your project requests?
Sure, so I'll go over the brief history on these pins. These 2 pins were historically on the tip for a number of years. One of them was for the reconstruction of Broadway, and the other one was for traffic signal upgrades. And I apologize, I just got my voice back. I'm doing my best. This is the best I've been in a few days here. So a number of years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, we realized that we do not have enough money in these 2 pins to reconstruct Broadway. So we narrowed the scope of the project and combined the 2 pins into one general project to redo the ADA pedestrian curb ramps and the traffic signals along Broadway from 9W to Grand Street. So that project was rescoped in roughly 2019, and then we advanced through the process to where we are today, which we are very nearly complete and nearly have an authorization to proceed to construction. So we believe we've addressed all DOT's comments, the plans are back in, being reviewed, and we anticipate getting an authorization to proceed to construction in fiscal year 2022.
Any
So,
questions? Okay.
oh yeah, are there any questions?
Well, we're gonna, if I may, we want to make sure that their dates, your dates are solid in there because that's being impacting the funding that is available for Middletown.
Sure.
So what we're trying to do is we're requesting that you be as firm as possible with your dates, as much as possible in there, so you know that you're going to be using the fund within this step, period, rather than being dragged on, rather than committing the money, and then we'll end up,
Sure.
just the money sitting there and nobody's using it. So that's why we requested that information from Orange County Transportation Council, and we need that information to be as accurate as possible for any of your projects that you're requesting additional funding for.
I'll give you a brief overview of the dates that we have.
Okay.
So we have authorization to proceed to preliminary design and right away. August 2019, we have our authorization to proceed to detailed design in August of 2021. And then we're waiting for our authorization to proceed to construction. Of course, it's not a guarantee for this fiscal year, but we project it to happen this fiscal year. Can't guarantee anything.
Yeah, fiscal year is going to be over in October, beginning of October, a couple of more months.
Understood.
So there is no more funding available for the city of for the city of Newburgh. Been working a lot with city of Middletown and city of
That's
Newburgh,
okay.
so I apologize if I'm.
We're sisters.
Makes
It's okay. It's okay.
So we had a discussion with the city of Newburgh and Jason and let him know that funding would be available in FY '24. So they would have to be ready to go to construction then with both pins. So they're moving them out of fiscal year 2022 into fiscal year 2024. And we've also let them know that there is, if the council agrees with funding these projects, there is no more funding available in those fiscal years. And if they were to come back, they would not be prioritized. New funding projects, we would recommend be prioritized over this project if they receive the funding.
So if I may, I just want to understand, the 1.14 million and the 0.2
Is
million.
total. So then they break out federal and local.
Understood, but
Yeah.
that's going to be in 2024?
2024, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we will look at, so in total, it will be just over $1 million that staff is recommending be programmed to the project for the STP Large Urban in fiscal year '24. We will look at the impact of the city of Middletown and the city of Newburgh's funding on the program in the next item. So we'll do local project sponsors, and when we go to the TIP development, we'll discuss and see what impact those funding requests have on the overall TIP.
Okay.
So.
Okay, local projects.
Yeah, so any,
Anybody want to update us on any projects they're doing locally?
Yeah, the traffic operations, I'll start. The traffic operation project, it's about 21, just a reminder, it's about $21 million from through Orange County Transportation Council. This is the local share, city of Middletown. And we have an additional about $8 million for our own funding on top of it to make this project viable. Because this project, really, the traffic operation by itself would have made a Swiss cheese out of downtown, out of entire city of Middletown, because it covers so much curbs and sidewalks away from the intersection that would be upgraded, the signalized intersection. So we had to come up with our own money, which is millions of dollars in there, to cover the gap in there and to continue to upgrade the entire stretch of the block. So we don't have gaps between the signalized intersections. Some of them are upgraded, some of them are not. So that's what, and there's landscape component to this project. So, the project is almost like $30 million now. And we're still getting into, like everybody else, getting into price increases and almost confrontation with the contractor about price increases. And DOT, they're very strict about where price increases are to be given for certain items, not for everything. So that's what we are going through right now. Construction is proceeding very fast, to be honest with you. I like the pace we're going. and, drive through downtown, Middletown, we'll show you, and outside downtown, Middletown too. We're opening up intersections all over in order to get it done as soon as possible, but we have to live with our funding. So we have the price increases, we have our own money that we are putting, and the point I'm trying to make, while construction is proceeding in a very expeditious pace, financially, we need some assistance in there. We're falling behind the financial. Last meeting, we were excited about the additional funding that will be potentially could be programmed for us. I know it wasn't voted, it was just programming until Newberg came up with their request. And maybe I should reserve those comments. This is only an update for this project.
You have
Keep
the
going.
floor.
All right,
You have the floor.
so we will be very happy to work with Newberg. We understand the financial obligations with them, but the idea is we want to make sure that all the funding is used. All the program funding is used. Like Sandra, she keeps repeating from the DOT that it's important for us to use up our funding in an efficient manner in there to show the state and everybody who's appropriating funds that we are serious about this money. We're just not letting it sit there and like wine age, and it's not going to get any better. So just keep that in mind, please. And we're willing, obviously, to work with Newberg.
Can I ask you a
we'll go from there.
question? So just so I can wrap my head around this, and Jacob, but you're doing a great job, and I know you're a great advocate for the city, but so this project was programmed at $9 million and it's now almost $30 million. How does that happen? And I get the price increases, but that's almost a 3-time increase in the cost of the project. Could maybe just explain to us how that's
Absolutely.
happening?
This project was born probably 20 years ago when Al Fusco was the Commissioner of Public Works for the city of Middletown. It was only signalized intersections to be upgraded. And like I just explained a moment ago, is we can't just do the signalized intersections in there to make it ADA accessible and leaving small gaps and sometimes large gaps within a stretch of road undeveloped. And that's what we came up with we added this much money to it. So that's the evolution of the project. The prices went up. The project was born almost 20 years ago. And just the price increases kept going up, escalating. And that's what we are.
So the scope of the project has changed as well?
We added our own money for the scope of work, not for the change in the scope of work included the gaps between the signalized intersections. That's what we added our money to pick that up. We're not asking for Orange County Transportation Council or DOT to fund that section or the federal fund.
So only the signalized intersections
That's
increased from 9 million to 30 million,
No,
24 million,
or,
outside of your 8 million.
yeah, 20,
21,
yeah,
whatever that
yeah,
roughly.
yeah, 21 and less than our share and all that stuff, because that's what happens when you you wait another year. This number is already, it's going to be up with the inflation. It's going to be sky high.
This is not a criticism of Middletown.
No,
This is
no,
not-
I'm just
So
explaining.
so my question is, does anybody in DOT would, could
Well,
you
I
guys
was,
ultimately?
this is ultimate, I was gonna,
Who-
chime in on this conversation a little bit. So, because I'm seeing this in all the MPOs. This is not unique here at this table at all. Now, when it comes to your discretionary MPO money, that's everyone, all the members of this board are making decisions, selecting projects and deciding whether or not to give them additional funding. Historically, what I've noticed is that the MPOs make good project selections, because all the projects are good, you're never talking about a bad project. You make project selections for a variety of reasons. What ends up happening, and I see this in all the MPOs, is the project sponsors come back for more money, whatever the reason may be. And historically, the MPOs have had this mentality, all four in the Hudson Valley, that if an existing project needs more money, we're going to look at the existing project before we look at funding new projects. That's kind of been the philosophy, and that's fine. However, you'll notice that the state of New York has discretionary programs now, like TAP, Bridge New York, and that's a no-go. No extra money. Do not come back for this discretionary program and ask for more money. Make sure that when you put your scope together, you put your estimate together, that you submit a good application and you're signing off that you will be responsible for any additional funds. There's an argument to be made for both approaches philosophically. But what I'm seeing is that as part of this tip update, all of the MPO's additional funding is almost going to fund overtures on existing projects. And that's happening in every single MPO, not just here. So I think philosophically that MPOs may want to, after this tip update, rethink how you're programming funds and projects. Because I go back to this analogy. Think about, everyone knows low bid in this room, right? Okay, we all know low bid. What happens? You get low bid, you give it to the low bid, and then suddenly, oh, there's a mistake in the plans here. Oh, this is, you right? Next thing you know, the money that you've given the low bidder is equal to bid 2 or 3. Is that fair? Is that fair? Right? So I think what happens is, and I don't think this is necessarily done on purpose, but you're awarding projects at a low amount. And then you're feeling like you're obligated to make up the difference as the scope or the prices change over time. That's okay. Again, it's just too philosophical.
Same thing could happen with bidder 2 and 3 though.
I know, potentially, but I'm just trying to give that analogy, because some people understand the construction, analogy a little bit better than some of this planning, funding stuff. So I would say there's a current philosophy, and I think it's fine. I think it's legitimate, but there is a different way of approaching funding. I've seen sponsors come to the table and they're at all the MPOs. It's not here. This is not critical to OCTC, but they come to the MPO and like, well, our project's over, almost as if the MPO owes them something. And back at the state, every time a sponsor gets phase authorization, we're having them sign off that they will incur the additional costs. So, cost control is important, but.
And in fairness to Middletown and Newburgh, these projects, as stated, were back way
Yeah, the
long
legacy
ago.
projects,
So
yeah,
that's part of the issue, I get it.
absolutely.
But we're robbing the future here. You look at this adjustment, there's no money before 2025 in Orange County. Think about that for a second.
In the Hudson Valley,
It's huge.
you could almost say.
So it's just a problem. And we're better now about looking at projects and on their merit, right? We're not funding all these wish list things that we did back 10 years ago, but this is a problem. And my question follow-up was that you sort of answered, but does anybody at the end of the day looking at that fact that you brought up, that how many change orders have been made by the contractors? Not that Jacob isn't on top of them, but still, how many of those are in this project, in this $21 million? How much of this was added stuff that, these contractors are foisting on us?
Well, yeah, that
Does
goes.
somebody look at that at the end of the day when they look at these or not?
Well, I know that from a state DOT project, when our projects go out into construction, if a change order is submitted, it's really scrutinized because we cannot legally be doing exactly what you said, which is like building things that are outside of the original project intent. You know what I mean? That's like a big no-no. We do, the state does provide some level of oversight on the local program from a construction perspective. And I do think we do get involved in the change order.
Absolutely. you do.
Yeah.
You have to approve
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Every change order is scrutinized by
Yeah.
DOT to the nth degree.
We do that to
And it has to
ourselves.
comply with the specs and the itemized proposal. And many
Right.
times we encounter something in the field that there's no bid item for it. What do? We have to scramble and so on and so
I
forth.
know.
By the way, this project, again, we did value engineering. We reduced the scope by $800,000 just to save money in order to go from concrete pedestrian crossing to stamped asphalt, heat treated pedestrian crossing, $800,000. And the DOT, they came to us and said, wait a minute, this is value engineering. The contractor should get half the savings. That's the DOT policy. And it was our idea, it was not the contractor idea to try to save the money, the $800,000. So we said, whoa, this is not value engineering by the contractor. we propose this method in there as a change or as to reduce the scope of work, so we're not gonna split it with them. So here we are, the DOT also with they have very rigorous standards in there that they stick to it. We can't do anything
And it's not
without
really
them,
DOT,
and they
it's
come
like,
and inspect it.
it's FHWA, I mean, it's.
Yeah, absolutely, you're
So it's-
enforcing the
it's-
Federal
yeah.
Highway Administration standards, and there is an audit, Mike, during the project, they come in with team to audit all the books in the project, and then there's an audit at the end of the project. And if nothing they don't like, they're not gonna fund it. They said,
So I
"You did
guess
we did this on your own, we did not approve it, that's outside the scope of work, you're responsible for the payment."
run into that.
Yeah, there you go.
Mike, if I may, I've been thinking about this, quite a bit. My experience is actually with TAF applications, and it's exactly the same as it says. Here's our budget, don't come back to DOT asking for more. And so I've kind of seen how OCTC has been working with the applicants coming back time and time again. And it is robbing the future because it's gonna be a number of years, even if we decided to do a call for projects, that we'd have any funding available to do so. And so I think moving ahead, it's something that OCTC really should discuss in a little more detail in terms of how do we move forward, because if all we're doing is funding legacy projects, we're not taking on any new initiatives or new projects that may be priorities for the council. So I think I'd like us to be in a position when funding finally becomes available again, where we could do a call for projects, and that if we do so, that I think we have to make that very clear to the local sponsors that come in with conservative estimates, and make sure you've addressed the feasibility issues to move the project forward. Because if you're coming in with a project and you have right-of-way acquisition, maybe you may go through several years of going through that whole process before you can even get to the design. And, that's just it's gonna push a project down 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So we want to try to avoid that. But I think
What complicates this is there's still legacy projects.
Yes.
yeah.
We haven't done a call before,
Yeah.
2008.
May I just say something here? You guys are talking just respectfully. We have a program in there, 5-year program. All these projects, they take years, like you just said, Alan, about the right-of-way acquisition. It takes a couple of years to go through the DOT, if you're lucky, and sometimes more. So we go round and round to try to avoid constructing anything in the right-of-way so that we will not get into the complication. But we remember the Heritage Trail, that Travis was there. We went with the Commissioner of Parks and the mayor and myself and Travis, and we went arguing with them and explaining to them in DOT about the right-of-way acquisition in order to expedite the process, because it was just painful. So you can put burden on the sponsor of the project. You can ask them to be extra conservative with their numbers. What's going to happen is all the numbers are going to be inflated at some point, not realistic, so that I don't have to come back and take the money out of my own pocket, or my taxpayers' pocket, well, everybody's pocket. And then we'll have this money available for the project if we're gonna become overly aggressive and overly conservative and overly avoiding and ignoring the hoops that we have to jump through to get any project approved from the DOT. And DOT, I'm not picking on DOT, that's their job, that's, it's federal standards that they have to enforce. They did not write it and say, okay, this is what you have to do. My point is the process is it's burdensome on the sponsor there. Just don't make it now any more difficult. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, this is a 5-year program. All the projects are there. This is not a wish list for somebody to come in within the 5 year and start the process all over again. All these projects have been programmed. Anybody who is on the list can come in and ask for additional funding, like Newburgh did. We asked for additional funding because funding was available within the TIP. This is not the time to bring somebody from the outside and here allocate another $1 million or $2 million for your wish list, and it's going to take you 5 to 10 years to do the actual construction. That is the nature of the beast. That's how we always functioned in this Orange County Transportation Council. Harry was there.
It really is a case by case though, because I appreciate what you're saying, and you're really saying if money is like available within the next year or two, and we don't, it is smarter to give it to an existing project,
Yeah.
because the likelihood of getting something off the ground and spend, exactly. That's why there has to be flexibility, and it's a mix of both, I think, of what we're talking
Yeah.
about, but you have to be strategic. you know.
Agreed. Many people, they back out. They say, look, we can't come up with
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah.
You know, that's it, we're out. So here's the money sitting there. It happened to us million times in the past.
Yeah.
Many people, they just back out. Newburgh used to be, I mean, not, Newburgh used to back out of projects just because they cannot come up with the money.
Mhm.
And we didn't have much in our end. We had this one big project. We had other projects, but we were earmarked through DOT, earmarked funding. But this is the nature of the beast. There is nothing wrong with what we're doing. You know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel because Middletown and possibly New, I'm not saying insinuating that, but because one big project in there is taking most of the money.
You're
No,
taking this sensitive.
I do think though, you know, when we do a call for projects, you know, we can look at the foundation of, you know, this CMAQ and the TAP application, the Bridge New York, where you really do set kind of like a timeline and you set and say, you know, maybe we favor projects that don't have right-of-way acquisition, that have all their environmental in place. So you can do these projects in 3 years. We have a project that can get on the tip and get off within the same tip, which seems, you know, impossible, but.
Can I add something real quick? So I think right now you have a unique time in which you have rapidly increasing construction costs due to uncontrolled inflation. And that's its own scenario that we're dealing with. Anyone in construction,
supplies too.
Yeah.
supply chain issues, rapidly increasing costs, can't get things. Separate issue. Aside from that, I think you have another inherent problem in the TIP programming process, because you're looking to allocate a construction cost years out before you actually do a preliminary design. You're looking to fund right-of-way acquisition costs before you know how much right-of-way you need. So you're never gonna get better than a guess at those numbers unless you change the way in which you come up with those numbers or delay the time in which you come up with those numbers. I don't know the right answer there, but I think that's a lot to do with the problem that we're having.
So we have estimated clauses in our contracts now, so assume that there's gonna be increases in price. The other thing too is every project has, what we call change orders. I mean, just the construction of this building, we had hundreds of change orders. But if you're paying the bill, maybe you negotiate a little bit higher, a little harder than you would otherwise. So the point is, do we give X and that's all you get, no more? Or do we continue as we have? To the Port Jervis bridges, they started out with X and we had to go back and give them more. I mean, and it's a great project.
Yeah.
So it's really a policy question.
Also, out of the blue last week, so I'm on Jacob's thing, out of the blue, 2 weeks ago, that's why I sent you guys down the letter, we got a 250,000 increase on a small project, you know, because of this inflation and stuff, and it's an important project for the town of Crawford. He's an advocate for Middletown, and I go visit Middletown in your restaurants, but I'm going to be an advocate for the town of Crawford to connect uptown and the business district, only $250,000. So if Newburgh, Middletown, Mr. Sweeten and everybody take all the money, I think we have to examine this. I know Middletown and Jacob's good at putting in his request, but, ours isn't even an old project, and I get a $250,000 increase. And the state moved it back. I didn't move it back. We're ready to go. As Jacob's an advocate for Middletown, I'm going to be an advocate for the other communities around.
As you should.
Yeah,
As I should be.
Absolutely.
We'll try to have equity and fairness here and,
Yep.
I'm just
everybody
thinking that
properly.
going forward, right, I think we have to look strategically around the county. And the call for projects doesn't mean you fund all those projects, but I think we need to know where those projects are. And then figure out where we're gonna allocate this money to it. And then we can deal with the overages and all that other crap. Like, for all we know, there's a bridge in way beyond it that needs to be fixed within the next 3 years, right? We don't know that because we're not asking. We need to do that.
Well, I was gonna mention that too. So if you do end up thinking that you're gonna have blocks in 25, 26, it would be smarter to, and I know it's a lot of work though,
Yeah.
but get the solicitation going sooner than later so that you can flush out the good candidates and get them programmed, because, it goes back to, it takes, 3 years to get a project going.
And I
To
think
get
we've
through
all
the
been
process.
educated about now what we need to do to figure, to really fund these properly, right? As opposed to the old days when it was, give me $500,000 and I'll build whatever I'm gonna build, right? So I think we need to do it.
Yeah, and I think if I may add, just to finalize my comments, I mean, this is a good problem to have. Years ago, we were sitting there and just the problem, Mike remembers, the projects are just sitting there and sitting there, like our
Yeah,
project's been there
no,
for 20
I
years. And it takes time, yes, but it takes also commitment from the client or the sponsor to make the project go forward. And then before we were sitting there, we could not even have a quorum sometimes to have a meeting. And just, the projects are just sitting there and it rolls into the next step. And into the next step, and nothing, no construction is taking place. Now we have a good problem, I think. It's a good problem to have. They have a lot of construction, everybody is trying to get as much as possible. But, again, if there's an emergency project, the funding doesn't come from the tip. If there's a bridge that's gonna collapse someplace, or whatever it is, or it looks to be an imminent danger, this is not the place for it, to come and get some help, there's some funding for that. This is all planned for the future development. And it takes years and years and years to tap into this money.
It
and to
does,
use it.
and a lot of willpower with all of the hoops that you have to jump through. So
Absolutely.
absolutely.
So the price increases, I'm sorry, Harry.
Go ahead.
The price increases that we're fighting with the contractor, it's not even on the table. Now, inspection, I remember you complaining about inspection. Inspection is DOT requires how many engineers we have to have at the site, how many engineers will have to be sitting in the trailer, how many engineers, it's mind-boggling.
They're just crazy.
It's
Those are just
crazy. It's
unbelievable.
crazy. So Al, he's on the phone, he's on in here, but WSP in there, their project, they came up with a proposal of $3 million.
Inspection fees?
For inspection fees. And we could, going back and forth, we didn't say, okay, here's the $3 million, where do we sign?
Yeah.
No, we went back and forth, we cut it down to 2.5, now we're back to 2.6. We just signed the contract
We did the
because
same thing on our
$2.6 million just for
Crazy,
inspection.
it's crazy.
If it was your own village project or town project, what would you do? You put a guy in there for
It's funny,
$100,000.
Yeah.
the oversight.
$300,000 for a sidewalk in Crawford, inspection fees,
Yeah.
a sidewalk.
Unbelievable.
The
It's just
oversight.
unbelievable.
But that's part of, it's
The
not your
over-
fault,
And
I
I've
mean, it's
never
not you.
understood this because, my academic background is architecture. And I did, practice for a couple of years, but I never understood, when you look at civil engineering and transportation, the amount of inspection and oversight they require compared to a building. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I'm telling you, that is just like a cultural thing. That just goes back historically,
cultural
like
thing.
50, 75 years.
The MTA just spent $30 million on a 28-step staircase. Okay, you go from Times Square to the station, you go up 42nd Street,
Yeah.
$30 million, 28 steps.
Is that the historic stuff?
That's just happened, yeah, right.
I'm saying,
Big Lake Gold or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah. But
So,
it's something about at some point in times, like society felt that you needed a lot of inspection for transportation projects.
Well, we do our own projects, municipal projects. We do very extensive ones, 30 million wastewater, 30 million water.
Right, and it's probably
Water
doesn't
lines and
require the
millions, tens
same
of
amount
millions
of
of dollars.
inspection, right?
Yeah, we don't drip that all
With
that, and we do very
buildings,
well.
and it's the same thing, right, they're not collapsing or
No,
not
we do
working.
very well.
And the same with buildings, I mean, there's critical points, and there's critical points, it's not every day you have 10 inspectors walking around. That's such a bigger, I've often wondered why no one necessarily questions that from a much broader perspective. But
Yeah, that's
again,
a
we're
huge-
just dealing with the requirements, goes back to the
Huge
FHWA
overhead.
requirements.
Huge overhead.
Yeah.
And then the consultants, they have to justify every hour. And then they say, this is the staff
And I'm
requirement for
sure
this
a lot
job.
of it goes back to safety, right? But again, I don't
It's an
know.
overkill.
Okay, we sort
I
of,
don't see them sitting in those trailers 24/7.
Yeah,
Those
well, you have to
inspection
have
trailers.
offices. What trailer? You have to have offices for them.
Do we have any other?
yeah, we've meandered
Project
from the
sponsors.
local project sponsor updates. Is there anything else? Okay, let's move
So
on.
I'm trying to figure out this height thing. I'm trying to, I had put in a response request, but I can't even justify that,
With
in
what?
light of everything else. So I'm trying to reduce that scope somehow to make it work, and we'll see where it goes.
Did you see the parcel that they added from the county? That was in the transcript, that actual parcel SBL now. I added to the transcript.
I didn't see it, but I will look at it. We had a deal, we thought we had a deal with the Open Space Institute for a parcel that would allow this to probably be made at a much cheaper. They withdrew it's a consortium of doctors, they withdrew it, but it's now back on the market, so we're trying to see what we can do. If we can acquire that, we can probably get this done. And that was a high priority project from who knows how long.
Since we did meander a little bit, let me ask Senator one more question. The federal infrastructure bill, all that money is going to the state and the state will,
No,
Somebody
actually,
else?
what's happening with that is more that they've created a lot of large national discretionary programs. But there will be some formula funds that definitely come to the state that will then be distributed either similar to this process or for statewide discretionary programs. So, there's really 3 different ways that we could see that funding come our way. Federal discretionary programs, which means even state DOTs have to compete for that. Statewide discretionaries like a TAP or CMAC, or sometimes what they refer to as formula funds, where it would come to the regions and then distributed to the MPOs. So there is still the potential for some of that. But I know that a lot of these programs, the states are still waiting for the information to make it their
What
way.
about the congressional directed spending? Like Maloney said he's going to spend $5 million on a dock in Newburgh and,
Yeah,
something at Stewart Airport.
the only
Does that go with him?
involvement.
He goes to a new district? Does that money go with him or does it stay
No,
there?
it definitely stays with the project because those are earmarks. That will be, and you just added one, didn't you?
We got the earmark for
Yeah.
Lake Street Bridge.
Okay, so
Joe
those,
Maloney.
those are, again, they're discretionary. There's to a project, they stick with that project forever.
Okay. That's good.
And we're not, I think the only involvement our office has, in the Poughkeepsie, our office has had with those is maybe if someone's applying for one, sometimes the applicant will ask us for a letter just in support of the project that it is eligible to be put on a tip. So our involvement with those congressional discretionary earmarks is very limited.
All right. Any other local project sponsor update?
I hope Harry's fears are not realized because Congressman Maloney, he did a press conference and gave us $3.5 million for the water line.
Yeah, show me the
We
money.
haven't seen, what's that?
Show me the money. That's-
Yeah, we haven't seen that. And then after that, the redistricting, I don't know, hopefully we'll get that. We'll still
We
get
have
that
a
money.
grant for our veteran cemetery from Senator Bonasek.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I hope it's still there when we go to bed. But anyway, let's move on then to the next item. Old business.
Yes, we'll go to old business. So we're gonna walk through the tip development. So the next slide, Jess. So this is the tip without any funding requests. And we realized the town of Crawford, we did not get your funding request, so that's not included in this.
I'm gonna track it, and see where it went.
Yeah, if you can scan
Soon as I
it and
get back.
send it to OCTC, the mailbox.
And on
OCTC.
county.gov.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can get that in sooner. So this is just a snapshot of the existing projects, and the, showing fiscal constraint within each year. So some of the projects had to move the schedule. So without any funding, additional funding, we had, in CMAC, we had just about 50,000 left over in 2023. We over-programmed in 2024. So that comes out of the 2025, so there's about 691,000 left in 2025. And then 26, 27, nothing's programmed currently, so that full target is potentially in a block fund. For the STBG large urban, the 2023 is fully programmed. 2024, there's about 2.5 million that would go in a block. In 2025, there's just under 500,000 that would go in a block. And then again, 26 and 27, there are no program projects, so those, the full target would go into a block fund. And then for off-system bridge, as I said, we'll get the full allocation for the 2023. And then, so there's no projects currently programmed on the off-system bridge funding, so all of it will go in block funds, and we'll look to do a call probably is
So
in the
what's
fall.
eligible for off-system bridge?
Any bridges not on the federal aid system that are on a public roadway.
Yeah, and we have a list of those eligible bridges for Orange County that we can get you.
Can
You
you
don't
send that?
already have
Can
it.
you send that?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's city, town, or village.
No, it's, they're all, everyone maybe has some, or you may have none, but yeah, they're usually, bridges that are on local roads. And I would say too, it's hard to, with the off-system bridge, keep in mind that when you do a call for projects, it's hard to find a bridge project exactly, $800,000 in 1 year. So when you get your candidates and you prioritize and you see what you want to do, we can, balance that out as long as you kind of stay within the 4 million overall. Maybe you'll end up with 2 projects because bridges are expensive. But we can get you the off-system bridge list, eligible bridge list for Orange County.
Okay, so the next part is the funding request from the city of Middletown and the city of Newburgh. So it's for the city of Middletown, PIN 875-707. There's a 1.8 million request for construction, 1.84 million for construction inspection. And then city of Newburgh, those 2 pins, it's 1.141 million for construction and the 231,000 for construction. So I'm gonna present staff recommendations. These are not finalized, these are just,
Can I just ask a quick question? What happened to the $700,000 you were requested? There's a $700,000 for covering change order.
That was for a Lake Drive Bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
How come it's not listed here?
because that's in the tip update. So if the tip update, or that's in the
Existing.
tip amendment, yeah. So if the tip amendment is approved, they would get that funding, and that's on the existing tip in the off-system bridge funding.
Okay, so shouldn't those numbers in here just to have
No,
be
so
listed here?
this is a good way to keep it straight, because we're balancing this with everyone is, you have an existing tip right now, and you're in your existing tip year, federal fiscal year 22, right now. That's completely separate from the new money, okay? So what Lauren and OCTC is proposing to do is make changes for 22.
Right.
There's blocks available, that is all on the existing tip. Now this discussion is for the new money and the new tip for 23 and beyond.
There is no new money in 2022 for STB Large Urban and CMAQ. So that's why we're discussing the STBG Large Urban and CMAQ funding, because that's in the future, in the 23, 24, 25, 26, 27.
Don't mix them up.
Yeah.
It's like you can't, because you're fiscally constrained in your existing tip right now, you want to stay that way. And then you're gonna build your new tip within your planning targets.
So, we just showed, 2 quick tables. Do you wanna go to the next slide? Just 2 quick tables showing, the total request, the federal and local breakdown. The total, what we're recommending for the total be programmed, and then what of that request is being programmed. So because this is the city of Newburgh's first request for these pins, we are recommending they be fully programmed 100%. And that would come from 2024 STBG Large Urban, because that's the only funding that's available, that's the next available funding. And then the city of Middletown, we recommended programming 50% of the federal, and that project is programmed at a 75-25 local federal split. So we kept that the same. We didn't change that. That's not something that's been updated. That's just what was on there. I
thought it was 80-20, no?
That project is not 80-20. It's 75-25. I don't know why. But
Probably because they had to put a local overmatch in order to obligate their construction funds or something.
Okay.
No, something is not right. We gotta check that. It's 80-20, it's always been 80-20.
Not on the, you
I
can
know.
check the current tip.
No,
I was looking
know
at the
that.
numbers. It's
Something-
not.
Something is not right. Every project is 80-20.
Well, that's what it's eligible for, up to 80%. You're eligible for up to 80%, but you might have extra local funds in there in order so that we would let you go to bid or something. We could, Nicole can
No,
help
we
you.
gotta look into that. I know we played with the numbers in there to let us go to bid,
Yeah,
but then it's gonna go back to the original breakdown.
as funds become available.
Yes.
As you're asking.
Yeah. So it's definitely, it's not.
So the
And then we
city,
have the Montessori fund as well.
so the city of Middletown project, that's the one that's in construction right now that they're asking?
Yeah, so that was obligated in what, 2022? And so you had to put up all the money up front, and then all the funding from 23 and 24 is backfilling what you put up front.
Yeah, they changed the numbers on the tip and there to make it work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which isn't normal, and we talked about this with FHWA, they normally don't let that, so
Yeah, I
in the
don't know.
future, we won't.
Well, I didn't even request it. That was done.
Now, the city of Newburgh, the two projects, where are they on your existing tip? What year are they for
They're
construction?
currently in fiscal year 2022, so so our obligation rate is gonna go down slightly, but there is no funding for them, so they could be ready to go, but there's no funding, they can't fully.
And they
So
can't make
it'd
up
have
the
to slide,
difference. You
yeah.
can't make up the difference.
Yeah,
Jim,
no
Middletown
available funding,
did.
no.
Yeah, okay. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Next panel explains a little thoroughly.
Yeah, so this is our staff reasoning. And so I'll say overall, so we're proposing, this is in federal funding. We're proposing, just over $1 million go to the city of Newburgh, and over $1 million, so just under like 1.5 million will still go to the city of Middletown. So you're still, even though half of your request is being funded, it's still, you're getting more than the city of Newburgh, proposed.
Yeah,
Reasoning, you
So,
gonna show the reasoning?
yeah, so staff reasoning. Next slide. This is the first funding request for PINS, the Newburgh PINS. The city of Middletown has received over 11 million in federal funding since the 2020-2024 tip, which we did the math, and that project alone was 45% of the STB large urban and CMAQ funding for the 2020-2024 tip. So we also were, recommending that they do get the funding because OCTC has previously been committed to assisting construction-ready projects, and the funding would otherwise go in blocks. So this is what it would look like, the next slide. So each of the projects, pin by pin. So the top is what it looks like now. It's in fiscal year 2022 for construction. So it would shift to 2024. And that funding would be added to construct, the STP large urban would be added to construction.
So the top is the existing
Yep,
tip and the bottom is the new tip.
Yeah,
It almost
which-
looks like you're accelerating it because we're always used to seeing, yeah.
yeah. So this is the first pin, the next, shows the next Newburgh. So again, you have the old tip, or the current tip, I shouldn't say. In fiscal year 2022, the construction inspection. So that will be pushed on the new tip to 2024 with those extra funds. And then in just the construction. And then finally, the city of Middletown. So this is all color coordinated. So the city of Middletown, we swapped the funding for SDBG large urban and CMAQ. So there's more CMAQ being shown than in the current tip and less SDBG large urban. That was just for fiscal constraint. And then, so the top is without the funding request, they would have to come up with that 3.64 million in local funds. So that's what it would look like, and all in fiscal year 2023. If they were awarded the 50% or full, whatever this OCTC recommends, they would show the that slight increase. We do the CMAQ funding, there's like 50,000 in 2023. So that would be programmed in fiscal year 2023 on the Newburgh City of Middletown project. And then we fill in the leftover STD large urban funding in 2024. So it ends up being like 1.285 million in construction and 1.2028 in construction inspection. And those can be changed based on however the city of Middletown wants. This is just what's being proposed. This isn't final. we'll work with you, Jacob, to make sure that that program, because I know you can only construct, and spend what you do each year, so we can program it to meet your needs. But this is kind of overall what we're proposing.
Okay.
So this is what the next slide will show you, what all the funding, what the tip would look like with the funding request. And again, this is not including Crawford. So we do want to talk about Crawford and what to do after this. But so you would be fully programmed for CMAC and STBG large urban in 22 and 2020. 23 and 2024, slightly over programmed in 2024 for CMAC, which would come out of the 2025 block. And so we have blocks in 2025, 2026, 2027. And the off-system bridge, again, we have no program projects currently, so that all will go into block funding. Are there any questions about this? Okay, so I do want to talk about the process first. So we need to come to some sort of consensus on how to move forward so we can get a draft tip and start to move that through the outreach process for a tipped update. It has to go to federal agencies, it has to go to tribal consultation. So the list has to be sent out, it has to be reviewed. We're in an air quality maintenance area, so it has to go through that process. So we have to get a draft tip kind of settled it on basically in beginning of July. So we can move forward with that process and present the final draft at the August planning committee meeting. So we can use this time to discuss and kind of come up with a plan on how you would like to see the draft tip, how that funding is being broken up. And staff will do that, work with NISDOT and get that to all the members to review. If we have to still have discussion and meetings, we'll have a planning committee meeting before the policy committee meeting on July 5th. So with that, I mean, how do we want to go forward with the percentage and the requests? Are we comfortable with the staff recommendations? And what do we want to do with the town of Crawford? Which I don't know what funding would be eligible for the state routes.
All right. I don't know, we sent a hard copy in an email, I don't know where it went, so we
Okay.
definitely sent, I saw a copy of it this morning, so I don't know where it went.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the total cost is around 200,000?
No, it went up $250,000.
Okay,
It's a 1 point something million, so it went up substantial percentage for a 2-year-old project.
okay. And the PSNE is done, you're waiting to go out to obligate for construction, so you need that full funding before you can go out to construction. But I believe it did in one of the previous tip
You pushed it.
modifications, it got pushed to
You pushed it to
2023.
23, correct. That's it.
I did.
You got it.
Didn't personally know. So this is being proposed for construction in 2023.
Right, was
It-
supposed to be this summer, and they pushed it into
Yeah.
hopefully next spring,
So currently it all uses Safe Routes for School funding, correct?
I believe so. I
Okay.
don't believe so, my grant guy's better than I am, but I believe so.
Okay, so I guess we don't know exactly which funding would be able to, do you see that for sidewalks? Sidewalks, it can. It'd have to go through the
Sidewalks and a street crossing.
Street crossing, just sidewalks exist?
Well, what do you have more of in 2023 available?
No, there's only 50,000 of CMAC.
No, go back to your original before you did a little brokering. Which one had more money?
Only CMAC. In 2024, there's STBG larger
Oh, so
than-
you have no urban and,
No.
all right, this gets back to like asking someone for money and they don't even have it. I guess you guys would have to see if this project's eligible for CMAC. Because that's the only thing you have, and then you'd have to adjust. Based on, who are you gonna give all the CMAC that you had in 23? Were you splitting it between the two municipalities?
CMAC in 2023,
On your proposed, there you go, yeah, you only had to go up like one slide, I think.
no, the full projects list.
55.
You have it, right?
Because were you obligating construction this year or next year?
Charlie, next year?
Are you,
We pushed into 23. It was supposed to be
Okay,
this
then,
year.
yeah,
right?
then
They
that's-
pushed it into
okay,
23.
then it's the right question.
We came through here and
We just have
asked
to,
if they can push it to 23, this group.
So it should be on the list then. It should be on the tip, this project.
the base amount is, but.
Yeah,
not
then
the-
we'll know what funding is, what funding source is.
Well,
She's looking for it.
we can check. If it has CMAC on it, then it's easy to answer if it's
Yeah,
CMAC
yeah,
eligible
exactly.
or not, but I don't know. Yeah,
If it
that's,
shows that that's being
Yeah.
funded by CMAC, it's-
yeah.
then that means just,
I don't think though that they funded safe routes to school with CMAC money. It had its own program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have all the projects, so we're just pulling those up for CMAC and FTG driven, so you can see what are the projects being proposed.
But you had,
Into those
you
funding.
had, some extra money in CMAC, right, to build your.
50,000
Oh, that was
and
it.
23.
Oh, then they don't even have the money. They can give you 50,000, that's it. I mean, you can't give someone money that
No,
you don't have.
Right.
The other option would be, and you don't want to defer your project anymore,
No.
right? Yeah, so.
Well, I've been at the state. It wasn't my idea to defer. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Is there any, I'm guessing there's no funding in 2020 for any of the other MPOs? 'Cause we
Oh,
have,
God, no.
we have some off-system bridge funding. We could trade maybe in 2023 off-system bridge
For CMAC,
or SCBG large urban, yeah.
you have urban available, or you have
No, no,
off-system, you have your
We have the
800.
off-system bridge in
Oh,
23.
yeah, you know who you could ask then is Duchess. Duchess,
But they don't, I think they're trading for future years.
no, they could use some, they could probably just switch, right? Because you're looking to just, yeah. I don't
Well, why
know.
don't you give
can
it some
try,
thought
Duchess.
and come
Yeah,
back?
when I
with
get back on
recommendation.
that, Dan, they can't call you and I'll try to get in a conference call with you to make sure we got
Okay.
Fine.
exactly.
But tentatively, there is no funding in 23, so you, like
50,000.
Newburgh had to push their schedule back to 2024 to be eligible for funding. So you would have to move your project back or front at the local. So I guess we can talk afterwards.
Or you had 50,000 out of the 250.
Mm.
Yeah, but we'd have to do a CMAC funding, you have to be eligible.
Yeah.
So we have to do a CMAC analysis to show that there's a air quality benefit.
Mm.
And so that also process takes time. It has to be reviewed by the state, approved by the federal government.
Could he blend in community development block grant monies with this project?
That's your best guess if you have other funding sources. So if there's any, I don't know.
Sidewalks,
leaders.
sidewalks, what else are you doing?
We're working on that, connecting uptown and downtown the other way with the walking thing with
And you have,
community
like-
development right now.
ADA access, curb cuts and all that stuff. I mean, there might be some money there.
We'll ring you as soon as I
Yes,
get
the
back.
only other thing you really could do is look at your 23 project list and is everyone really gonna deliver in 23? They say they are, right?
It's I think the Village of Curious, Joel has a project for roadway development. And I think they're pretty ready to go because they didn't want to shift schedule.
Yeah.
We'd have to, yes.
It's so soon, I would assume that people are using their money.
I think for the question for the council is whether you're willing to accept the staff recommendations for the Newburgh and Middletown projects, because we'll need some direction in our meetings coming up.
I think it's fair.
Sounds,
Yeah, when is it being?
July 3rd, so it's kind of soon.
Right.
sounds fair, like you guys put a fair analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, City of Newburgh's happy.
Great.
Yeah, Middletown is okay.
Okay, so.
happy. I just want to make sure we had direction.
Yeah,
Just remember, we need 250.
Put that on the
from
record.
there. You don't
Put
use.
that on the record.
okay, so we'll work on with the town of Crawford, but we have been pretty much a draft tip, so we will send that out to members to review after this meeting. And then.
For action in July.
No action, it's just, we want to move forward with the process. So what, we just want consensus to move forward with the process.
And the only comment I would make is looking at where your tip is after funding this, we do a call for projects ASAP. so we can understand what the needs of the rest of the county are.
Yes.
Okay. We can look then,
Well,
because we
for-
need to program that off-system bridge funding, so we can look to
Yeah.
probably in the fall, start that process. We don't currently have a call for projects template, so we'll start with that, building that for,
Yeah, I think we'll definitely want to see that the local sponsors have at least given thought to some of the feasibility issues. I think that has to be part of the
I
process.
think you should
No,
outline the
here's an
criteria
idea,
of
too.
what we're looking to
Well,
do.
here's an
here.
idea too. So off-system bridge New York.
Mhm.
I know, a lot of municipalities, maybe the county submitted, candidates for Bridge New York and they didn't get funded.
Right.
You might want to try to find those are there any?
no, because
Yeah,
aren't
we
those
submitted a
on?
couple of projects.
Those are federally.
And they
More projects than
We did not since, we
And they
got-
didn't get.
no, they did not
can
get
be
funded.
both.
We had
Well,
two as well.
For the Bridge New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they can submit both. I don't think they had to, because I know we're using off-system bridge as a fund source for some of those bridges.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
so what we'll do is get you that list of eligible bridges. If you can make any matches, I'm just saying that those projects have been vetted and they might be pretty good and they're already someone has already dedicated time to an application and they really want to get that done.
Right.
So, something to think about.
Okay,
It could help. So you maybe don't even, you go through solicitation or, you can approach it any way you want, but it could maybe help you get to programming good candidates quicker.
Yeah,
I
one
don't,
bridge,
please share that with us.
yeah,
Okay,
one bridge is already flagged by DOT a million times in Middletown,
okay,
Janang Street.
okay.
Good to know.
Yeah, I know. John Ravella reached out to us.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
So, we'll definitely, move that up, look
Yeah.
at the call.
Done?
So, but-
New York State DOT presentation. of capital
I'm
project.
sorry, one more thing, Eric, just for the record, you guys have nothing to do with it. We object strongly about the 75-25. I don't know where that came from. You have nothing to do with it. I understand that it's federal funding, 75 versus 80. It's from the federal funding. So
No, just
Yeah.
let them look at the numbers. It's
What would-
accounting. It's accounting. It's not an eligibility.
75 on 85, no. Do you,
I think what happened is there's an accounting thing.
Right.
and because of you needed to show an extra overmatch.
Right.
Okay,
but that's been resolved.
all right, but maybe she was looking at something old.
Okay,
I
good.
can
That's
show
what
it.
Well, that's what I want to, okay.
I know you're
Yeah.
getting nervous, but
I
I
am
don't
very
think, I
nervous.
know.
I will say though, there's only X amount available in federal funding, so
Yeah.
I can show it 80-20,
Right.
but
I
you're
think you
gonna,
should do
you're
that.
gonna still see a lot, you're
local.
you're still
overmatch.
making it up in the local.
Yeah.
There's only X amount of federal funding on that project. So we can
So-
show it the 80-20 but you're still
I'm gonna
covering
follow,
that
I'm gonna
local.
follow what Sandra recommended. I'm not gonna make any noise about it.
Okay.
You make it 80-20, please.
Okay, Nicole,
Move
I'll
on.
touch base with you after.
Yes.
Okay, are we now at the New York State DOT presentation of capital program?
Yeah, I don't, do we want to do that next time? Oh, you have it. Okay, then yeah, I can cruise through this.
Okay,
Um,
take it away.
Oh, we don't,
Oh, Did we miss
you have to
something?
share yours. Just stop sharing.
um,
Thank you.
UCTC was the MPO that really wanted to see this, but then all of the MPOs asked, so. Usually before a tip update, we update our capital program internally. So next slide. Now, what we do, the way that we program our dollars is we have what we call 4 asset teams. We've got a pavement asset team, we've got a structures asset team, we have basically a safety system optimization asset team, and then a sustainability. Every single one of our capital improvement projects fits into one of those 4 asset teams, okay? And then annually, our program is about 250 million. And this is kind of the distribution of how much we're spending on pavement, structures, all that. And I'll show you a sampling of the projects in each of these groups. So next slide. So pavement, this is the pavement asset team. Annually, we spend in the Hudson Valley about $65 million. And DOT, state DOT continues to be in a preservation first mode of programming projects. We're not doing a lot of reconstruction. It's mostly paving, like repaving. So you'll see we have our preventative maintenance paving, basically kind of like overlays. We have a good robust crack and seal program annually. And then we do some focused intersection repaving where we get a lot of shoving of the pavement from the trucks and turning. Okay, so next slide. And then our bridge program, it's about 85 million annually. We do a lot of rehabs, washings, paintings. Our culverts fall under this program. So we do a lot of culvert, again, rehab, some replacements, maintenance. And then emergency repairs. A bridge gets hit, a bearing collapsed, something, so that that 85 million also has to cover our emergency repairs. So we usually set aside, I forget how much annually for unexpected emergency
You
repairs.
have one right now. It's a sinkhole on 9W right by 84. I mean, it's really.
9W 84?
Yep,
Because we have a
9W.
capital improvement to fix, is
It's
it by the
major-
gas station?
yes.
Yes, okay, all right, but
It's a major safety hazard.
okay, yeah, I think we have that actually programmed, but I don't know if it's gotten worse and we
It's
have to
getting pretty bad.
accelerate it, but we do have that one. And then retaining walls also falls under this. We recently, too, just as a side note, we recently inventoried our culverts. And wow, when you inventory something and start looking at it, ouch, just saying. And we haven't done that for our retaining walls yet, but we're starting to. So it's just like opening up Pandora's box but the money stays the same. So, we also have a group called Safety and our System Optimization. That's, you'll see kind of, there's a lot of the intersection safety, signal improvements, sign replacements, pavement markings, like the ferry service, right? That's like a system optimization. Our Transportation Management Center that's located in Westchester County, but oversees the whole Hudson Valley, the HELP program on our interstates. That 90 million annually goes to those types of projects. And then next slide, please. And then this is kind of, sustainability. Again, you'll see examples of this, graffiti removal, some more maintenance, roadside vegetation, and our sidewalk, ADA sidewalk program is in this 10 million annually. So that's it. That kind of gives you an idea of the 4 asset teams, how much annually projects look like. So next slide. This is just to kind of show you again how much of our funds are really being spent on preservation. We are doing some renewal, but very, very small amount. Mostly in structures because you have to replace the entire bridge. Sometimes you just, you're at that point. But pavement, we have like no full pavement reconstruction projects on our core program. So again, this is just to emphasize that. Next
And Route
slide.
207 coming from Newburgh to Goshen, it's a nightmare. Can you
Yeah.
take that road alone?
No, but I could on my way back
Yeah, take it, Brian.
if I want to.
In your car.
Sometimes it's my car. It's funny, sometimes even I'm in the car and I'll hit a ramp somewhere or something, pavement's really bad. I'm like, I gotta call Amy. What are we doing? What are we not doing here?
Yeah, take it right on 207. It's,
All right, and then this is just to give you, what the state does at DOT, and this is worth you guys understanding too a little bit, is that's our core program, 250 million annually. Statewide, some money is held aside to fund these beyond preservation projects, and each region has to go after that money competitively. All right, we have to make a case for this is a good project, we want to fund this. And some of these projects are those projects, but we're doing some slope repairs in the Catskill mountain region. On 9W, we're doing some drainage repairs. 212, we're doing a nice complete streets project that includes 3 or 4 bridge replacements. And then Route 284, now that's in Orange County, right? No, still not? I didn't, so
284.
where's?
Yeah, it is.
It is,
West
right?
Town.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Where
we're
is
gonna
it? Where is
do.
it?
Slate Hill, West Town.
Seriously.
You know, a nice sized project there for paving and some drainage. Interstate 84 truck parking. We're just doing scoping right now, but we're looking to create, some sort of truck parking. One in Orange County off of 84, probably one in Dutchess County off of 84, because you guys know, you see it, the trucks have nowhere to go. You know, they're parking on the on and off ramps, which is not necessarily a good situation, or like in Dutchess County, even they're parking on the ramp into the rest area. So, we're gonna look for we're gonna do a good scoping phase and try to identify some locations for that.
By the way, 284, New Jersey, when you're driving through into New Jersey, it's very nice. When you go to the state line, it's really embarrassing. It's really embarrassing that 284, honestly, for New York State.
Oh, no, we'll be on a project.
No, I know, that's what
Okay. It's okay, it won't be so embarrassing.
Can't wait to hit the Jersey line.
Really? Oh, boy, okay. Well, I'm gonna say, yeah, Jersey, is this in New Jersey?
Yeah, New Jersey, yeah, New Jersey,
I was just
284,
in-
once you get to the state
I
line,
was
New
just
Jersey,
in
it's
Jersey
beautiful there.
myself.
Little town, you can't hold on to your head. It goes.
I actually went to Cape May, so we were on a lot of their, like, Garden State Parkway, we're on 95, came back different ways. I gotta say, that state likes to pave. It's noticeable, the
Hopefully we'll get
pavement.
that- We'll get the same way.
Yeah, it is amazing though. Let's see here. And then we have, Route 52, 82 in Fishkill, we're gonna do an intersection improvement, Raymond Avenue. And then Route 17M, we're gonna, replace that bridge. Those of you that are familiar with it, it's really falling apart. And then we're gonna do quite a bit of, pavement improvement, and we just recently decided to split the projects. We're gonna leave the bridge replacement. We're still working on this in the office, but it looks like, you know, the regional director supports this, so I'm sure we're gonna move in this direction. We're gonna keep the bridge replacement, and I think it's in like 2026, 25, but we're gonna accelerate the pavement to next year.
What municipality is the railroad bridge?
Monroe,
So it's down, okay, so.
I'm right, I'm totally,
I think it is
I'm so
Because we looked
guessing,
at it, right?
I'm
It's,
so guessing,
I
but
think it is.
it is a really,
I
it's
was
a
thinking
bridge
Chester and that.
it's in bad shape. We get a lot of complaints
Oh,
for the pavement condition, but I'll
yeah,
tell you underneath is real bad,
yeah, by Brookside.
yeah. It's a big deal, it's very expensive, we've been advocating to get the extra money for a couple of years now, so it's a big win for
But
us.
thank God 1700 is being paved from city line all the way towards Goshen. Now, that's a big thing. That was a real nightmare too.
You know, we have
It's
some
being
good
done now.
good projects coming up. I mean, this was a sampling because it was supposed to be more for the TMA, the Transportation Management Area. You can print the draft tip, right? If anyone was interested in seeing all the state DOT projects in Orange County, right? I mean, that is something that can be generated now. So you can feel free to share that with the members. Yeah,
Well, so we'll send that when we send the draft local program, we'll send the state program as well.
exactly. Yeah, do that. And send us the program so Nicole can start entering it into E-Step, because we do that for you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for the graffiti removal?
Well, I would say we're responsible for maintenance, and I consider graffiti removal maintenance.
right.
So, yeah, us, but we're gonna be tearing that bridge down, so. But in the interim, they could go out and paint over it.
Sandra, in regards to 207, Alan's heard me complain about 207 and everyone in the office for years now, but being very serious, if I have the time, can I send you 2 pothole locations that have been there? You can fish out of the one pothole.
Yeah, no, send it
And
to me
I'll
because
show you
now that
exactly where they are.
we're, in the winter, they can't fill the potholes too well, but we're well into
They filled
potholes.
some, but these, I don't know how they didn't fill these 2 particular ones, where, I mean, if you hit it with your tire, like, you're worried you just blew out your tire.
Anyone here can send me anything DOT related, okay? Because I feel like what I can do is I know a lot of people and I know all the departments and I know how we
Yeah.
function. So I may not be able to personally help you, but I will be able to
But-
find that person so much faster than you ever will. So send that to me.
Okay.
And I guess it's kind of coattails off another question. You know, we had someone reach out and say, we have a concern of a location in our area that's on a state road.
Yeah.
So how do we get that project funded? Because obviously it's not a local project,
Okay.
they can't be the
Good
sponsor.
question, and it plays off to what we were looking at earlier. So if something comes to you like that, send it to me,
Okay,
okay? And then we can always follow up with the individual. This is what happens, because this happens to us all every day. We have those 4 asset teams. Those 4 asset teams meet regularly. And they have usually prioritized list of needs in the region. So when we get something new, what I do is I take a look at it, right? And if it's not something we already have programmed or planning to do, I identify the asset team that it belongs to, and I'll reach out to that chair and I'll say, hey, look, someone shared this with us. It's obviously a need. Can you discuss it at your next meeting and see where it might fall in our with our other priorities? And then that's what we do. So we try to be very accountable for everything. Now, it doesn't mean it could, well, very low on that prioritized list, right? Or it could already be, many times with paving, it's already on our hit list.
Right.
Okay.
It's just a matter of how soon can we get to it. That's what I usually find with paving. But some of the other stuff, I'd have to take a look at.
yeah, because I know we have a few studies that we're currently working on and looking to do in the future, and they do cover state roads. So is that something that, we compile a list and can send that to, I saw it.
Right, and what I have staff do recently, you guys finished a couple of studies. So I had a staff member go through, and one was a TMA, I think, study. I said, please go, I want you to read this study, I want you to go through it. Every recommendation that's related to a state highway, pull it out, and then it gets distributed to the asset teams again.
Okay.
So it's not going nowhere. We're trying to be, make it part of our system, how we program projects.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
211 West, leaving the city line, going into Walkville, very, very poor shape.
Send me an email.
Yeah,
211, yeah.
and we studied that area in the West Central TLC. So I think we have
Usually
recommendations
major
there.
corridors like a 211 is usually on our radar. It's just we can't get.
Yeah, we just spoke to the regional engineer. They're begging us to do more repair because we installed a water line in there. They want us to do more repair than we're obligated to because it's not on your radar yet. So it really needs resurfacing, the whole thing, honestly. 211 West from city line,
Yeah,
going west.
okay.
Thank you, Sandra. Any other questions for Sandra? And let's move to the resolution to allow for video conferencing, Mr.
So we have one,
Okay.
oh,
We have
do we
one?
miss, we just have one quick, can you go back 1, 2, sorry. So this is the transit program. We're currently working on the transit tip projects. So these are our Orange County targets. So you have 5307, 5339 that comes through the Poughkeepsie Newburgh urbanized area and then is distributed through a formula. So that's a Orange County portion of that, and then Middletown, because it's an urbanized area, also gets funding. So we are, and then we have the proposed ARPA and CRISA funding as well. So we're working on, we have a capital program for bus purchases that we've added onto the tip. And then we're working on the funding blocks right now, and we will share that with the local program and the state program to members in the coming week, 2 weeks. So that, just want to give everyone an update on that as well. So look out for that email. And then the full tip timeline. So the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program, which is made up of all of the individual MPOs tips going to the STIP. And so the STIP timeline got pushed back. So our tip timeline is also being shifted back. So before we proposed adopting in August, we are now tentatively adopting it in September.
Was this for some reason with the state legislature didn't act on something? What was that?
No, this has to do with just, I think the state getting the planning targets out to the MPOs on the late side.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and we also, this may shift still because we're tied to the New York State Transportation Committee, NIMTIC, New York City, sorry. And so whenever we have their regional emissions, we'll be able to go out for public comment, but we can't go out until we get those. So we'll continue to work with NIMTIC, we'll continue to work with the state DOT and keep everyone apprised on that timeline. but tentatively September. It's a busy summer for us. And so the next steps, we'll send the draft project list to OCTC members. And once we get that set, we'll start to draft that tip narrative and the air quality transportation conformity documents and start to go through that consultation process. So next, finally,
But I'll handle it.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it very simple. You have the slide up there. At the last planning committee meeting, there was interest in allowing for video conferencing. Public officers law authorizes boards to have video conferencing, provided that we pass a resolution authorizing such activity. So what we're recommending in the resolution is passing a resolution for the video conferencing at the July 5th policy board meeting. Subsequent to that, we're recommending an adjustment to the operating procedures to outline the procedures for video conferencing and allow for the 45-day public comment period. So if you authorize through the resolution on July 5th, then if you have members that can't attend and be physically present at the meeting, they can do so by video conference. So resolution, if it hasn't already, will be distributed prior to the July 5th policy board meeting, and we'll be asking for action at that meeting.
Any comments, questions?
Members will not, who are removed, will not be able to vote.
the quorum has to still be in person.
Right.
So what,
Can they vote? I mean, if you have a quorum.
Yes.
once
The
it's,
people who are in the video.
once this is adopted,
Yes.
so this will be action, this will be the first thing on the agenda.
We generally always have a
We'll get one.
We need a quorum physically present,
Right.
and then those members who are visible and video conferencing, they can't call in, can vote.
They can vote on video conference
Yes,
If you
if you pass this.
if we pass.
And if quorums,
We have to have a quorum present.
so,
Gotta have quorum present here, okay.
yeah. So,
I would think we're encouraging people not to come. But I'm old fashioned in person.
It sort of is.
Now we're gonna get people sitting at their offices or home.
Yeah.
That's just me. I don't support it, but.
at least 8 people will be in this, in this room.
Voting members.
Yeah, 8 voting members. So we'll, the proposed next meeting is July 5th. It's gonna be the first Tuesday. The second Tuesday, Alan is at a conference, so we had to move that up. So I will send out the invite to all members after this meeting. Please let me know if you can attend. I want, a response of whether or not you're gonna be there or not, with if you're gonna be there in person or not. So I'll send out a date when to send that by, and I'll probably be like a week early, so if I have to start calling and piecing people down to get quorum, that's all. we'll do.
So it's the same resolution for the towns and county, right? Correct? The town's got the same thing, I believe. And I did it, do nothing, they said we can do.
You mean for the county legislature?
I don't know what the county legislature, but the town board's
We're
definitely.
doing
got
it in
this.
accordance with the same public officers law.
Yes.
Okay, so it's the same thing, we got
Yeah.
it, but I'll have town board members who don't come to meetings. So, right?
Yeah.
Well, we'll pass out the resolution,
3 there.
review it. If there are refinements you think you want to make to the policies, let us know.
You have to do what the legislature does. They declare themselves full-time employees. So they have to be there.
So July 5th,
July 5th,
what time? 10 o'clock, the same
at
place?
1 PM,
1 PM.
yes,
This week?
July 5th, 1 PM.
yes. I will double check that we have this, I will send it all out immediately.
Okay? All right, that ends old business, so we'll go to new business. Alan, you want to talk about the American Rescue Plan?
Yes.
Coronavirus response relief?
We have American Rescue Plan and CRISA funding allocations to the UCA. Based on discussions with our Mid-Hudson partners at the various meetings, Our current thought is to use the UZA 89 ARPA and CRISA allocation provided the draft of by DOT, but with one big exception, delaying and or deferring any allocations to the private commuter operators for the time being. The private commuter operators are Adirondack, Hudson, and Leprechaun. Our rationale for this is that the private commuter operators have received large CARES allocations very recently. OCT and the other members of the TMA are not comfortable with allocating over 30 million to operators that either may not be running services or not have spent down their CARES. The approach that we're recommending would still ensure that money flowed to our public operators. And so what you see listed as unallocated is the funding that we're recommending to place on hold. This approach would also open up the possibility of issuing a regional call for projects to sub-allocate all or some of the private operator ARPA or CRISA transit funds. And our thinking is a regional call for projects will allow us to better identify and invest in transformative transit projects across the 3 counties. It would also allow us to implement our regional transit plan, Connect Mid-Hudson. So some of the eligible activities that you can fund through the FTA 5307 include planning, engineering, design, and evaluation of transit projects and other technical transportation-related studies, capital investments in bus-related activities such as replacement, overhaul, and rebuilding of buses, crime prevention, security equipment, construction of maintenance and passenger facilities, and capital investments in new and existing fixed guideway systems, including rolling stock. So there's a whole host of eligible activities. So the request, or what we're seeking consensus on, is to at least temporarily place a hold on just those portions of the ARPA and CRISA funds that are earmarked, for lack of a better word, to the private operators.
Any questions for Alan? This money has to be spent by 2026 or something?
Yeah, I have the numbers here. So there's actually no lapse date on the CRISA funds, but the ARPA funds have an obligation date of December 31st, 2024. And the unexpended ARPA funds are subject to recapture or return on December 31st, 2026. So this might be a good opportunity to dust off the Mid-Hudson Connect study. If you have your team looking at projects, we're going to do the same. Maybe there are some projects in there that jump out at us as, being able to advance. Of course, we'll need.
Is this only transit stuff?
Yeah.
We need to have concurrence with all 3 counties.
We're seeking that. Mark Duvall is seeking that from his council. Dennis Doyle is seeking that from his council. I've spoke to both of them and said that I needed to bring it to our council to seek your consensus. So yeah, it would be the transportation management area.
Okay. Any
And then
questions?
all 3 MPOs will need to adopt resolutions adopting the funds as well.
When will that happen for us?
So if, I'm assuming we have consensus to move forward with the funding split as it is presented, so we will look to act on that at the July 5th meeting.
And the MTA funding is mandatory, the numbers that they have there.
So that's part of a formula funding, so they did a
Yeah, they did a
formula.
So there's no discretion about how that's spent, that's just,
Yeah.
goes to them.
Yeah. Yes, we're just looking at the unallocated.
They're gonna need it, they're gonna need about 10 times that much for the rest of the year.
For more steps.
MTA.
More steps, more steps.
All right.
Okay, great.
So that's the ARPA, and then this is the CRISA split. So we have the draft resolution, so we'll send those around 7 days, I believe, before the public meeting.
Thank you.
It'll be on the agenda in August,
July,
July.
yep, July.
All right, seeing no other questions, we'll move on to Unified Planning Work Program, amendment number 1.
Yes, So we're almost there.
We're lurching towards the
Yeah. So we had, we presented previously that we had the additional, FTA MPP funds through the IIJA bill. So we needed to have a amendment adopting these 2022-2023 grant funds. So we updated that, but we also looked at our UPWP, since we're already doing an amendment, to see what else we can improve on. So we have, I think, 3 main tasks that have been added to the UPWP in this amendment. The first is we are adding a task for an additional OC roadway safety action plan. So this will be offset by funding and the Route 17M corridor study for about 150,000. We are fast tracking this project because with the IIJA, there's a new funding program, Safe Roads for All. Orange County and all the municipalities are currently not eligible for any of the roadway, like the build portion of the funding of the grant, because we do not have a roadway safety action plan. So we are proposing to fast track this plan in the next year. We'll have it in place, and then once we have that in place, all the municipalities will be able to then go for, and Orange County will be able to go for and be competitive for the Safe Roads for All funding.
Good idea. And this is an example of one of those federal discretionary programs.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next is the Orange County DPW is looking to purchase traffic counters. And so we have an estimate of 70,000 for 15 new counters. So we increased the equipment budget, and we increased that task budget from about 70 or 90,000 to I think 140,000. And that's being offset by the GIS task and the county pavement management system task. And then finally, and then the additional funding to the equipment line. And that's being offset by the contractual line. We still have over $1 million in the contractual line. So the version that was sent around is a red line version. So you will see all the changes are highlighted in red. And then the last table, all the changes are highlighted in yellow, because having that red line was very, very messy. So I just highlighted what was changed. And the additional MPP funds all went into the local planning, transit planning task, just under staff.
Okay.
So we will, so this will go out to 14 days of public comment, and we'll be, we'll move on that at the July meeting as well.
Will there be a public hearing on this at the July meeting, or just take comments?
We'll take public comments beforehand, and then we'll seek action.
Okay. All right.
Are there any questions on that comments?
Next is reports, review of bipartisan infrastructure law, funding opportunities.
So the first is the staff. So just a reminder, the July 5th meeting at 1 p.m. I will send out the location. In person is required, so please respond. And then I just have the different actions that we'll be meeting on. So you can go through those real fast. There's 5 resolutions currently. So video conferencing, the TIP amendment, ARPA, CRISA funding, and then the amendment to the UPWP. So the next is funding opportunities. So I know everyone kept asking about the bridge funding. So the bridge investment program has been announced on the bill website. So the link is to the, and I can send the slides out, the link is to the fact sheet for that. So it's a multi-year grant program, discretionary funding. So I think you apply directly to FHWA. So if you're looking at planning grants, those are due at the end of July. Large bridge projects, which are over 100 million, are due by August, and then all bridge projects are due September 8th. And then again, the Safe Routes for All were also announced since the last meeting. If you're not already signed up for those notifications, I would recommend going to the website, signing up. They also have webinars, which staff sit on to kind of try to understand, and we'll summarize what we can and share with the group.
And a lot of these are multi-year, so you shouldn't get too, you know what I mean? Just realize that, what, maybe for the next 5 years potentially, right? I mean, you know, you don't know though if they're gonna do a call every year, but it's encouraging, you know?
Is there a match required on the bridge rooms?
I think they're 80/20, but don't quote me on that.
I don't
Everything,
know, you
Yeah.
say 80/20, but sometimes you'll be surprised it'll be a 90/10 or less, so, but it's usually around 80/20.
yeah, look at the website, all of them have fact sheets. What I've seen is almost all of them have different rules, so just
Okay.
look into that. So next we have training opportunities. So I think Cornell Cooperative, they have a local technical assistance program. So there's virtual and in-person workshops. So we've highlighted two. The first is an ADA public right-of-way in-person workshop that will be hosted in Orange County on June 22nd. And then the second is a local federal aid 101, an overview of the process, and that is a virtual workshop, which is free for registration and is happening September 13th. So I don't know if you had anything to add, Travis, on the ADA training.
That one's in the town of Walkill. I've attended previous Cornell workshops for ADA and they're really beneficial to go to. And you know, I think the rules change pretty regularly, so we have a couple of our staff going to that. But any of the Cornell workshops I've found to be really beneficial to go to. It's a good program.
Yeah, I'm going to the ADA. We need the professional development hours.
Yeah, I know, I feel guilty for not going to that one. It's a lot of credits.
Yes,
That's a good one.
absolutely, for
Yeah.
very cheap.
So if you're interested, let us know and we can help kind of connect your staff to this training.
That's right.
Right.
All right, are we there? Are we
Other
there yet?
member, yeah.
I think we were all starved of an in-person meeting.
Well,
Don't
this is
you?
good. It's a planning.
That's what Sean was saying.
Laura, what's your direct?
Yeah,
Done.
I'll give it to you off record.
We got.
anybody else want to contribute anything today? If not, I thank you all for coming and ask for motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you guys for sticking through it.
Oh my God,
Lauren,
great
great
job,
job.
Lauren.
Yes.
Really. Oh my gosh.
Really?
That's a lot of work.